The famed investor Michael Burry, who astonishingly won close to $1 billion by betting against the U.S. housing market in the middle of the 2000s, has once again raised the alarm as the U.S. inflation rate hits a 40-year high. This time, his forecasts for 2023 are gloomy. The famous investor from The Big Short, known for his pessimistic but frequently correct predictions, made the bleak forecast in a tweet last Sunday. But are you ready for the impending economic turbulence? Stay on till the end of this video to discover if you have the answer to that question. But before getting into the details, let's learn more about Michael Burry. He is a highly accomplished neurosurgeon in addition to being a successful American investor who created the hedge fund Scion Capital with just little inheritance. Investors all across the world recognize him as one of the few who anticipated the subprime mortgage crisis and took appropriate action. In 2007, Burry was able to generate a tremendous profit of $800 million by shorting the mortgage bond market using collateralized debt obligations, or CDOs, with a personal profit of $100 million and a return to investors of $700 million. But what Burry is really known for was his $1 billion bet against the housing boom in the middle of the 2000s, which was depicted in the book and movie The Big Short. He also placed bets against Elon Musk's Tesla and Cathie Wood's flagship ARK Innovation Fund last year. And by buying GameStop before its stock rose at the beginning of 2021, he unwittingly laid the basis for the meme stock mania. Last summer, the Scion CEO issued a warning about the greatest speculative bubble of all time in all things, cautioning investors in meme stocks and cryptocurrencies, saying that they were headed for the mother of all crashes, which they somewhat did. So when this man makes a prediction concerning the future of the US economy, it probably makes sense to listen. As long as inflation stays at a 40-year high, consumers and investors are concerned about how much the cost of living will increase. And the question on everyone's mind is, would the country experience another recession? Yes, the frightening R word. However, there's little doubt amongst analysts today that a recession will occur in 2023. What took place during the COVID-19 pandemic? Due to a number of circumstances, including supply chain interruptions and a surge in demand for some products, such as household goods and personal protective equipment, several nations saw a considerable rise in inflation during the COVID-19 pandemic. These elements, combined with monetary policy actions taken by central banks, such as increasing money injections to boost national economies, led to a decrease in the number of items available and a rise in demand, which raised prices. What followed was inflation, rising levels of expenses and lowering the purchasing power of the average person's income. The sudden increase in inflation was only brief and was brought on by the pandemic's special circumstances. Burry's most recent economic forecast and warning are receiving more credence. According to a Bloomberg survey conducted in December among 38 analysts, there was a 70% possibility that there would be a recession after 2022, up from 65% in November. According to median projections, GDP will expand by just 0.3% overall in 2023. This includes a quarterly decline of 0.7% on an annualized basis in the second quarter and no growth in the first or third quarters. And according to Maria Vasilou, co-chief investment officer of multi-asset solutions at Goldman Sachs Asset Management, she expects some changes in the foreseeable future. In her own words, she says, "We expect that the Fed will stay in restrictive policy for a while unless the effect on real GDP growth and unemployment becomes particularly severe and inflation has fallen close to target." Burry projects a decline in inflation and deteriorating economy in 2023, which he says will drive the Federal Reserve to reduce interest rates and the government to boost expenditure to encourage growth, raising demand and possibly triggering a rebound in inflation. He said that the inflation rate has peaked, but he also stated that this was not the cycle's final peak. "Inflation peaked," Burry wrote on Twitter on January 1st, "but it is not the last peak of this cycle. We are likely to see CPI lower, possibly negative, in 2H 2023, and the US in recession by any definition." He issues a warning that the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, is likely to experience a considerable decline in the upcoming year and could even become negative in the second half of 2023. The long-expected recession would occur as a result of such a drop in inflation. The Fed will cut, the government will stimulate, and we have another inflation spike. It's not hard, Burry says. All of this will result in a subsequent spike in inflation, similar to what occurred during the COVID-19 pandemic. we'll essentially witness a practice run for what happened after March 2020. In response, the central bank increased its base interest rate from a position of near zero to over 4%, with the assumption that this rate would rise further and reach a peak of more than 5% in 2023. Burry argues that by reducing consumption, investment, and employment, higher interest rates have the effect of reducing inflationary pressures, and by discouraging spending, investment, and hiring, higher interest rates seek to reduce upward pressure on prices. Along with Michael Burry, other well-known businessmen and investors, including Tesla's CEO Elon Musk and Amazon owner Jeff Bezos, have issued recessionary warnings. According to Elon Musk, a U.S. economic decline may last up to 18 months. He advised investors to ride it out by being cautious with their money, avoiding debt, and taking fewer chances. On the other hand, Jeff Bezos advises Americans to delay making new purchases and keep as much cash on hand as they can. My advice to people, especially small business owners, is to take some risks off the table. If you're going to make a purchase, maybe slow down that purchase a little bit, Bezos said last November. If you're an individual and you're thinking about buying a new large screen TV, maybe slow that down, keep that cash, and see what happens. Same thing with a refrigerator, a new car, whatever. Let's take some risks off the table. If you're a small business, maybe delay some capital purchases. Do you need that new piece of equipment? Maybe you can wait a little bit. Have some cash on hand. Just a little bit of risk reduction can make the difference for that small business, Bezos concluded. Also, the Bank of America chief economist Michael Gapin also seems to share similar views about the economy. He believes that the United States will have a recession in 2023, although he is less certain about his prediction. He disclosed this on Face the Nation. It's not baked in. It's not certain. We may be able to avoid it, but I would agree that the outlook of most people who sit in the position that I do think 2023 could be a difficult year for the US. Burry was one of the few investors who predicted the subprime mortgage crisis that lasted from 2007 to 2010. He shorted the 2007 mortgage bond market by swapping CDOs and profited heavily from it, and as a result, became one of the role models for flouting accepted wisdom in the financial industry. The 2015 movie, The Big Short, showcases how the investor, who had little prior knowledge of real estate and finance, came to realize that the industry had turned into a sandcastle, with financiers and bankers developing exotic products based on mortgages offered to financially unstable households and borrowers with bad credit. According to Burry's Twitter handle, CassandраBC, he seemed to enjoy the part. He constitutes a party pooper for traders and risk takers. Burry had warned last year that American families were borrowing more, saving less each month, and were very certain to deplete their savings by the end of the year, suggesting the possibility of a slowdown in consumer spending and an extended recession. In recent months, Burry forecasted that the economy was about to decline drastically, that there would be a wave of mass layoffs of white-collar workers, and that the stock market, which had enjoyed 2 years of success during the pandemic, would soon face its worst slump. The striking thing is that by 2022, all these predictions came true, which explains why we should really be concerned about Burry's Sunday tweet. So what do you think about what the financial experts have said concerning the recession? Do you think it's something the US can avoid? Let's hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Bye!